I'm having a really hard time with this because you may not know this, but 2 ladies on this board today have been elected. And if we had people that acted like you with us, you'd be exactly right where you are today. And the fact that you blame this on politics is astounding and actually insulting because just because.
Hey, if that's not a mic drop by an Iowa parole board member. So this is our welcome introduction to a new state. Thank you, Richard, for making this possible. We're about to watch the parole hearing of, I think, one of the scarier type of inmates, a stalker. We'll unpack with all the details at the end. With that, let's jump in.
So the way it's going to work is the 3 of us will ask you some questions about what happened and what's your future plans, things like that. Then we'll come to you and let you talk and tell us anything you want us to know that maybe you forgot or things that maybe you prepared that you wanted us to know before we make a decision. Then we go into our deliberations where you can see us and hear us and listen to everything we're thinking. And then I come back at the end and explain our final decision. Does that work for you?
Yep.
Okay. So to kick us off, why don't you talk to us about the crime that you committed that got you here and kind of the context of what was going on at the time?
Okay. I was into politics and I did NCO violations numerous times to my victim.
Okay. So what did you do with those
There
NCO
was
violations?
Facebook Messenger and text messages.
Okay. And you have talked to her, you were trying to speak to her, your victim.
Yes.
And you were like following her, trying to connect with her. What was going on? Why were you doing those things?
Because it was in politics. I helped her with her campaign.
Okay.
I had a falling out.
And you had a falling out. And so she didn't want you to help anymore, or what happened?
It was after election. She
Okay.
won. Yeah.
Okay. And so then what happened? You just kept trying to reach out and talk to
Yeah.
her,
Yeah. Yeah.
and she didn't want that.
No.
Okay. So have you had this issue with anybody else in the past, or is this something new?
Nope. I've never had any problems.
Never had any problems like this before. Okay.
Nope.
All right. And so what do you think happened? Why do you think you gotten in trouble? What went wrong?
I don't know. I guess she just thought she had more power, I don't know, in the community than me. Yeah, I don't know what went wrong. I guess I don't know. Yeah.
So you don't think you were actually stalking her?
Yeah, no, I'll commit. I'm the one that did it. Yeah, I'll take full responsibility. For
So
my
you
crime.
think you were stalking her?
Well, through Messenger and text messages. Yes.
Did you understand what a no contact order was?
Yes. Yes, I did.
Before, and you still made those choices?
Yeah. Through a third party. It was through a third party. It was through another person on her campaign.
Okay. And so you thought that wouldn't violate your no contact order if you went through a third party?
Yeah. Yeah.
But you've learned since then that still violated the contract?
Yes. Yes.
All right. Well, this is an interesting story. Okay. So then what have you learned since you've been incarcerated? Or tell me what you might do differently if we were to move you forward today.
If I move me forward today, I would get out of politics. And I guess spend more time with my family and get a full-time job.
Okay. Were there any kind of alcohol or drug use involved in this?
No. No, there
Do you
wasn't.
have a history of alcohol or drug use?
No.
Okay. Have you had any kind of history of mental health issues?
No.
Okay. All right. Those are going to be my questions for now. I'm going to turn it over to my colleagues and I'll be right back. Let's see. Susie, would you have any questions?
Yes, thank you. Good morning, Mr. Eckstein.
How are you doing?
Pardon me?
Good. How are we doing?
I'm good. How are you? Can you hear us?
Yeah, I
Okay.
just see you now. I forgot my glasses. Sorry.
All right, not a problem. I'd like to know, regarding the crime, how many other elected officials you've reached out to?
How many other officials that I've reached out to? I've helped many campaigns.
Well, I mean, when you violated the protective order after it was issued, did you also reach out to and contact other representatives?
There was one at a representative. Yes.
Who was that?
Cheryl Westridge.
And why did you do that?
I thought we were friends.
How did you know her?
Through through Brooke Bowden.
So what are your intentions regarding Miss Westridge?
I won't talk to her anymore.
Do you still have your Facebook account?
No, I didn't. I don't. My wife has deleted it.
So it looks like you could be interested in contacting or having contact with a mental health professional. Would that be correct?
Yeah, maybe some therapy. Yeah.
Okay. So it sounds like you had many life changes and stressors. Is that correct?
Yes, I had a bad accident in 17.
What happened?
I got my foot crushed in August of 17.
Okay. It looks like that you are wanting to interview with a trucking company. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
All I have to do is take a physical and have a phone interview with them.
Okay. So you've had contact with them?
Yes. Not recently, with the last couple of months I did, but
Okay. And they have your resume and you've spoke with them,
yeah,
you've said?
yeah, I have spoke with them, had a phone interview with them.
Okay. Sorry, I wanted to look back over some more notes. Talk to us about your use of alcohol, please.
I used to drink. Oh, this has been 4 years ago. No, probably longer than that. Probably five years ago. I just quit because I was pronounced diabetic. The doctor recommended me not to drink anymore. So
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said. You were
I
diagnosed.
was diagnosed to be a diabetic.
I think that's all my questions for now. Thank you for answering my questions.
Thank you.
All right, Jesse, did you have any questions?
I do, thank you. Hello, my name is Jesse Rincon, nice to meet you.
Hi.
So what is your current relationship with your wife right now?
Good. I've been married for 23 years.
What are some of the things that you guys have discussed that you need to work on after this incident?
Get out of politics.
Just that's it?
Well, I mean, I gotta amend with my kids. I haven't seen them for 15 months.
Was there anything else that was brought up that maybe you could work on besides getting out of politics?
Just my family life, vacations.
Okay, so my other question to you is what made the contact with the victim unwanted? What did you do that made it unwanted? At what point was it unwanted?
I guess too many NCOs.
What did you say in those violations of the no contact order that made it unwanted?
Telling her that, I'm the one that won her the election.
Say that again, please.
I'm the one that won her the election.
So you wanted, so was your goal to get recognition?
No, I already had recognition.
What was your goal?
To get her elected, get the other guy out. That was my goal, and I succeeded that.
Okay, so if that all worked out, were these violations after the fact that she was elected?
Yes.
So since you met your goal, why did you pursue?
I thought we were good friends. We went out many times together, as me, the wife and us, and her husband, and yeah, I don't know. She didn't need me anymore, I don't think.
I guess my thoughts are is there seems to be a little bit of justification because you said that it was third-party contact and which would make it okay. On a no contact order, no contact period is okay. Whether it be third party, social media, smoke signal, whatever, it's not okay. Do you understand that at this point?
Yes.
Okay, I appreciate that. I have no other questions and I appreciate your time.
Okay, thank you.
Susie, did you have a follow-up?
I do, thank you. So, Mr. Eckstein, talk to us about the treatment that you participated in while you've been incarcerated.
I've been active. I've done healthy relationship class. That's pathways. Church. I've also got for all the agriculture pesticide classes taken in the course, so that's 5. You have to take the course, then the 4, and then I have the turf grass one also passed since I've been here. That's for like golf courses and stuff.
Thank you for listing those. So talk to us about active. What was your takeaway from active? What'd you learn?
My way in forward moves, and my 4 shoot, sorry, I can't even think of it. My 4 oh shoot, I can't think of what is it called. I'm sorry, but my life, my health, and my job, and what else is it?
Are those the things that you value?
Value. That's. I'm sorry. Sorry, I couldn't think
Okay.
of my values. Yeah, my 4 values.
Can you give those to us again, please?
My family, my job, the wealth, and my health.
Okay, thank you. What did you learn in healthy relationships?
I got a lot of resources, where to go to get help.
Okay, can you give us an example?
Just where to get, like for job, I can go to this place in Des Moines, 'cause I live south of Des Moines, for jobs, for food if I need it, clothes.
Okay, pathways?
Yeah, it was good communication skills.
Can you give us an example of how you use those communication skills while you've been incarcerated?
They brought you up in front of the group, made you speak, who you were, what you've done for your crime. And you do a BO, you do a resume, a BOP letter. Yeah,
Okay, what'd you think of that class?
good.
Yeah? What did
Yeah.
you learn?
Oh, how to help, with, like I said, communication, get in front of a bunch of people. And how, they helped you do a BOP letter and your resume.
So did you learn any communication skills that you think would be helpful to you moving forward?
Yeah, just speaking better, you know, in front of people.
Okay. Did you have a job, when you violated the NCOs?
I had many jobs because I was still in a lot of pain for my foot. And that's how I got wrapped into politics, is because I couldn't drive. They come pick me up. I was laid down for almost 5 years.
Okay.
4.5, 5 years.
I'm going to ask you a very pointed question. So you talked about your job and you related it to politics, and that's how you got involved. Were you looking for, did you have some hope that you would be provided some pathways to a job by being involved in politics?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Eckstein, now's the time. If there's anything that you would like to share with us, this would be the time before we go into our deliberation.
No, I don't think I have anything. I think you guys have done pretty well.
All right, colleagues, anybody would like to share what you're thinking? Or I'm happy to go first if you would prefer not. Nobody wants to go first. All right,
Okay, go ahead.
I'll go. I'll be happy to. So Mr. Eckstein, I'm having a really hard time with this because you may not know this, but 2 ladies on this board today have been elected. And if we had people that acted like you with us, you'd be exactly right where you are today. And the fact that you blame this on politics is astounding and actually insulting because. And so I'm having a really hard time because, for one, you get out regardless in January, but your behavior is appalling to women and it's not appropriate. And if you continue down this path, you're going to end up in a whole lot more trouble. So because you are leaving anyway, I'm looking at moving you forward, but where I can't decide is if I'm going to move him to work release or if I would put him in parole with a GPS monitor to make sure he doesn't go close to any of these people. I would like to hear from my colleagues, their opinion. The other things I think must happen are a mental health evaluation on a 40A plus probably a 50A. And so, colleagues, what are you thinking in this situation?
Yeah, that's what I've been going back and forth with when I'm looking at the TDD date. I think we need some time on supervision. So I'm supporting the department's recommendation and move him forward because of that. I think we got to the crux of what he was looking for and what he was trying to do. And I think there's bullying involved, you know, just because you help someone asking, you know, or in this case, violating the law to get what you want is a totally, it's just, yeah. I'm looking at it 2 ways. One is the parole. That's where supports are. We're looking at Indianola, but I also look at someone who hasn't been working, needs a job. He has an interview at the job's in Des Moines. So I'm thinking that he would probably, well, I'm not sure. Chelsea, what work release would we be looking at?
The closest one for Indianola would be Des Moines, right? Should be Fort Des Moines.
Okay, so we're confirming it would be the Fort. I think, so I'm really torn because I know that the supports are going to make a big difference, but I also know he had these same supports when he committed the crime. But I know now that his Facebook has been deleted, he says, per his wife. But I also know he needs a job, and that seems to be at the crux of what the problem kind of started emanating, thinking if he could get involved in this, then he would get a job on the backside. So I too am, I just haven't come to a firm decision in my mind, except that to move him forward. I can commit to that. And I'd be looking at the 20A of the limited internet, the 20B remaining on paper until 2/1 of 2025 with no early discharge on the sentence. Mental health, I would go ahead, I'd be fine with a substance abuse evaluation, and I'd be fine in supporting that 50A. I don't know that he actually has a job, and that's why I'm on the fence. Work release could be a good situation to make sure that he is held accountable to get a job and get himself reintegrated back into the community. That's why I think work release is a good idea. But I also understand his supports are in Indianola, but it's not that far away. So I think I'm kind of leaning toward the work release for the reasons that I gave regarding a job and then getting to the crux of it. So that's where I am today. Thank you.
Thank you, Susie. Jesse?
Thank you. It's an easy decision for me. I recommend work release. There was a lot of justifying I heard with the violation of the no contact orders. I asked him specifically, he talked to his wife and what are some of the things you need to work on? And he said, stay out of politics. I got stuff I have to work on in my marriage every day. And to me, that was just a big answer. So out of respect for the victim, and I think this will help Mr. Eckstein as well, our work release. And I agree with the same codes as Susie said.
Okay, so we're in agreement. I will deliver our decision. All right, so Mr. Eckstein, we're going to move you forward today, but instead of parole, you're going to be going to work release so that you can solidify that job that you're looking for. We have some additional requirements that we're going to attach to that. There's going to be limited internet use, given that the stalking was done via text message and other types of communication. There's going to be a no early discharge, meaning that you're going to serve out your full time through that January or February release date. And then we're going to have some treatment codes to help give you supports in the community, including looking for a mental health and substance use evaluation. If those come back and say that you don't need any additional supports, you'll be done. And if they do say that you need to have additional supports, they will continue, and then you will be asked to continue that process. And then finally, we're going to ask you to stay out of liquor stores and bars and not have anything to do with alcohol. As you say that that's not a problem, but we know it has been a historical problem. So thank you. And that concludes our interview.
I'll just stay here.
We'll talk about it later.
Well, that was interesting. Renee said, who wants to go first? And then it's just like crickets. I think everyone's a little bit nervous to get on this guy's radar, so to speak. But she came in there and she laid down the gauntlet. I like what I saw from her. I really do. I hope we can see more mic drops in the future. What did you think of Iowa so far? We have a few other hearings. Now, this one in particular, they seem to come down the hardest. And maybe you can imagine why. I mean, she laid it down. She said, 2 of us are elected, which I didn't know. And this is what I love about doing parole hearings in different states. You learn the different inside and workings. In most states, it's that the governor handpicks the parole board. Maybe in Iowa, some of the parole board members are elected. But this case is, I think, just terrifying. I think it's scary. You know, in parts of it, it just seems like one of those situations where we can see the nightmare before it happens, where it's Monday morning quarterbacking, but all of us are expert NFL analysts. And we don't, I think, need to be expert analysts to see that this is scary. Now, I'm only speculating on a situation like this. I'm not diagnosing anyone, but I'm going to share information with you that Richard found. Now, there are no news articles, but it's his arrest record. Now, he was talking about how he hasn't driven in 5 years because of this, or he's going to get a trucking job. Let me share with you his terrifying driving record, which I think tells you everything you might need to know about about that there's something very wrong with him. These are arrests, not pulled over. So in 95, he has a seatbelt violation. In 96, he has speeding. In 96 again, he has speeding. In 97, he has speeding. In 97 again, just 17 days later or something, not wearing a seatbelt. In a month later, in 97, speeding. In 98, speeding. In 99, no seatbelt again. In 99, speeding. In 2004, speeding. In 2009, failure to use seatbelt. These are arrests. These are found guilty. These aren't pulled over. What do you think this says about someone's psyche? Again, I'm just speculating. To me, it's saying scary that he's refusing to put on a seatbelt. You know what this means. The police knows who he is. They know him by name. They know everything about him. They know he's getting arrested, not tickets. And you might say, well, the times in between, we don't know. Was he locked up in jail? Did he get his license suspended? Did he actually stop driving when his license was suspended? It's not quite sure. But, it goes on. 2010, seatbelt arrest. 2015, speeding. Now, here's the first time. It's 11/29/2015 where he gets anything to do with an illegal substance. So remember, there are no DUIs in this, but he gets his first one, open container. So not actually intoxicated, just open container, which is quite interesting. Because maybe you would assume they would have gotten him for drinking if he had anything in the system. But who knows? I doubt they give him a deal. But anyways, then we jump up where he says, and he says, oh, it's been 5 years I didn't drive. And maybe it was because they finally took his license away. And maybe that's the only thing he respects, which is interesting. But here we have the political thing. You have November 12th, 2021 harassment, 3rd degree. November 14th, just 2 days later, 3rd degree harassment, assault violation, and a violation of probation. Maybe the assault was on a police officer or someone there, who knows. 11922 violation of protection order. Then you have 323. You have 8 counts of contempt, which goes basically every day in a row. So March 15th, March 16th, 17, 18, 19, right? It says that counts were dismissed. I don't know, or maybe that these are violations of the. I don't understand this exactly because this is 220. But anyways, he has 323. He has the stalking violation, and just goes on. It goes on. It goes on until they finally arrest him, and he gets this 1-year sentence. And again, this just seems terrifying because no matter what, like they said, he's getting out. Now, maybe after a valuation, they'll say he needs a bracelet. I hope so. I don't know what the powers may be or how it works in Iowa with putting a tracking bracelet, but to me, it would have been like a no-brainer that he has to be in a bracelet. Not that it would stop someone who wants to do anything, but at least put it there. If I was a politician in this state, I mean, I don't know if it has anything to do with being a woman. What Renee alluded to. I think it just has to do with I think he genuinely, authentically believes, I'm just speculating on a situation like this, that he got her elected, as he said. He actually believes that he did, which is, I think we could tell, insane. And he was supposed to get a job and he didn't. And he was wronged. He was wrong. The whole world is conspiring against him. The idea that he's even in prison is wrong. You can tell his contempt. He's just sitting there. He's just trying to go through the motions. Everyone is out to get him. Again, just my opinion. And this man is scary and dangerous. And we see these things on the news. We see these things in true crime all the time. And the idea that all of us, I think, can see this and identify this as a problem, yet the system is ironically handcuffed on doing anything. They couldn't do anything, right? He's getting out no matter what anyways. Like, oh yeah, he's going to go and get work release. Whoa, great. Now we're going to jump into Connecticut, which we are quite familiar with. After Connecticut, we're going to go to Utah. And finally, we're going to wrap up with Illinois. And again, I think it's fascinating to get under the hood of all these different states and see how their systems work. And some of them might surprise you. With that, let's jump into good old Connecticut.
And there was some indication that you had lit smaller fires prior to this. I mean, is that how you were relieving stress and anger, through setting fires?
It was controlled. I had a bucket of water with me at the time. I was burning old papers.
Oh, that's fine, but did you understand my question?
Yes.
Why were you burning stuff?
It helps me relieve stress better than punching something or
Well,
somebody.
that's what
I am getting incel vibes with this hearing, but we are about to watch the parole hearing of a man who burnt down his apartment complex. We'll unpack it with the details at the end. I'm going to show you some newsreels of the fire before we go into the full parole hearing.
Following some breaking news right now in Torrington, firefighters on the scene of an apartment complex fire on Hillside Avenue. NBC Connecticut's Leslie Mays is there. Leslie, what's the very latest?
Keisha, we just got information from authorities here that the fire is now officially considered under control, but significant damage done to the building here at the Woodland Hills Apartments. I want you to take a look at building 13 here, at the farthest building here in this complex, in this section. That is where authorities believe that this fire began earlier today. But now, as a result of this, everyone who lives in this stretch of buildings is out of their homes for the evening. Power cut to this unit following this fire that again started about 9:15. We are told the good news that no one was injured here, that everyone who was inside of these units was able to evacuate or be notified of the fire and able to get out. Someone from the police department told me that the people inside of the fire apartment were actually calling the authorities as they were on their way out. So the good thing is that the fire is out now, no one hurt. But again, if you take a look at this building, significant damage done here tonight. And now authorities are trying to just make sure that all hot spots are out, keeping their eye on the fire to make sure that it doesn't reignite here. But a number of people out on the street tonight as a result of this blaze. They're going to be looking for a new place to stay. We are told that the Red Cross will be on the way soon to provide some assistance to these residents as they try to figure things out following this incident. We'll give you any new information as we get it. But for now, we are live in Torrington. I'm Leslie Mays, NBC Connecticut News.
After the hearing, I'll unpack it and show you pictures where you can actually see the full extent of the damage. Let's go in and I'll unpack it at the end.
Jake Butler, 430-326.
This hearing is being conducted in consideration of the parole application for Jake Butler, 430-326. He's serving a total effective sentence of 20 years in jail, execution suspended after 6 years jail, followed by 5 years probation for arson second. As of today, records reflect a parole eligibility date of May 22nd, 2024. There is no victim input in this case. This is a rehear for discretionary parole, as Mr. Butler was denied parole on November 13th, 2023, with a rehear date of May 2024. There is an offender accountability plan for the offender. It has been reviewed and shows the offender has completed voices since his last hearing. Utilizing the statewide collaborative offender risk evaluation system, the offender's overall score on the RT falls within the low range of risk for recidivism. This is your opportunity to express to the board why you wish you should be granted parole. You may begin.
I know what I did was a horrible decision. I've regretted it every day, and I thank God nobody got hurt. And when I get home, I'm going to get help from my anger. I'm going to get a job and help take care of my family and get my nephew back from DCF. Take care of my grandparents.
You're going to take care of your grandparents?
My grandmother, she's losing her memory. She's living by herself
Where does she live?
in Naugatuck.
But your plan's to go to New Hampshire, is it not?
No, we're going to get her up there at some point.
Wait, say that again?
I'm going to get her up there at some point when I get the chance. Show some more up there.
Yeah, how about you focus on taking care of yourself?
Okay.
I mean, that would be a start, right? I get that you were young at the time. You were 20 years old and doing incredibly immature things. But now you're 25. It's time to learn how to take care of yourself. Happy to see that you did the Voices program. What did you learn from it?
That everything basically that I learned is screwed up in that program, like domestic violence and all that. The child abuse. It's bad.
Wait a minute.
Wait, from the Voices program, you learned about domestic violence and child abuse?
Most of it, yeah, most we learned about.
The Voices program is about victims and the impact that you have on victims. Do you know how many victims you had?
A lot.
Who are your victims? Don't use any
My-
names. Who are your victims?
My neighbors at the time,
All right, who else?
everybody else around me, my
Everybody.
family.
Everybody. The resources from the fire department alone, one of those firefighters could have been injured, might have damage from smoke inhalation. Meanwhile, you're taking resources away from a fire somewhere else that might need their assistance, right? The cost to insurance companies, everybody's rates go up because the homes have to be repaired, refixed, or knocked down, whatever the case. You have so many victims. What were you so mad about that you wanted to burn your neighbor alive?
I didn't mean to burn them alive. Nobody got hurt, and thank God that nobody died.
Okay,
I
but
was
obviously your
angry.
intention was for someone to get hurt if you're setting a house on fire with
I
people
was
inside.
angry. My anger got the better of me, and I'm not gonna.
I want to know, what were you angry about? Is what I'm asking you.
My mother leaving state. I couldn't go with her at the time.
Your mom left the state, so you burned the neighbor's house down?
No, I was mad because I couldn't go with her. I had to stay in Connecticut.
What does that have to do with your neighbors?
I took it out on them like a dumbass. I shouldn't have done it. I know it was horrible.
That doesn't even make sense to me. So can you set the scene for me? Was this an apartment complex?
Yes,
How many apartments?
there was 8 or 9 side by side. They're all connected.
8 or 9 side by side. And where was yours?
At the very end,
The very end, and where was the person's who you set fire to?
next to mine.
Right next door.
Yes,
So was your place destroyed too?
some of it. Yes,
Some of your belongings were destroyed?
yes. It was
But I was aware that you were mad at the neighbors and there was some kind of feud.
Yeah, that too.
Okay, over what?
Them blaming me for stealing a bucket of baseballs, which I had no reason to do that. I don't play sports.
Did you get arrested for it?
For stealing the baseballs, no, because I didn't do it.
Then what are you so mad about? Who cares? If someone accuses you of something that you didn't do and you didn't get in trouble for it. And that's a serious grudge.
Yeah, I know. So I'm gonna seek anger management when I go home.
And there was some indication that you had lit smaller fires prior to this. I mean, is that how you were relieving stress and anger, through setting fires?
It was controlled. I had a bucket of water with me at the time. I was burning old papers.
That's fine, but did you understand my question?
Yes.
Why were you burning stuff?
It helps me relieve stress better than punching something or
Well,
somebody.
that's what I just asked you. I'm just trying to understand. Okay. Well, a bucket of water didn't help me this time.
I tried putting it out, but it didn't do anything. It was too out of control.
Right. And that's a chance that you take anytime you light a fire.
I understand.
You don't use any drugs or alcohol, right? So
No,
you had a clear mind when you did all this. Wow. So that apartment was completely destroyed, right?
yes,
Burned to the ground. Do you have to pay any restitution?
no,
There's no restitution attached to your probation.
no.
Wow. Okay. Why weren't you working?
I tried looking for jobs at the time. Nobody was looking for help.
Do you think you tried hard enough?
I tried my best. I couldn't
Well,
walk
if you
around.
had to sit around and light fires, I think you had time to go apply at a few more places.
Nobody in Torrington was hiring at the time.
Did you have a car?
No, I had to walk everywhere.
There's a bus in Torrington.
Wasn't working.
Woo, Mr. Butler. So we should assume that when you go back out, you're going to have a lot of free time because you may not be able to find a job and you might start burning things again.
I have a job set up for me when I go home. I just have to
Okay.
apply.
Where's the job?
Hannaford's.
What is it?
Hannaford, it's a store, like a stop shop or a small store in New
Yeah.
Hampshire. It's a chain in New Hampshire.
All right, so you have not taken an anger management class. Why not?
They denied it because it wasn't on my OAP, so I did voices instead and got a detail job.
What kind of job?
Detail, I cleaned the day room at night, sweep and mop.
Jimmy, that's it?
Yeah, that's a chairman job, right? Yeah. All right, so you're working, you managed to stay out of trouble, and you took the voices program.
Yes,
And now you want to go stay in New Hampshire with your mom.
it's the best option, better than staying in Connecticut.
Yeah. So without programming, how have you learned to better control your anger or use alternative methods?
I listen to my book, my radio, I read my books, I draw, I write, stay in my bunk, unless I'm cleaning.
All right, and what are your plans outside of working at the grocery store in New Hampshire?
I'm gonna take care of my dogs, myself, help my mom out best I can,
Who else lives with your mom?
her boyfriend.
Okay. Oh, all right, and no prior criminal history. So you were doing something right till you started studying these fires.
Yeah.
I thought anger management was on his OAP. Huh? Anybody
No,
looking at the
but
OAP?
when I got here, they changed it to voices because I thought it'd be better for me and it was.
Okay. Mr. Rodriguez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Butler, I was hoping to hear a little bit more from you today. I'll be quite honest with you. Even looking at your evaluation from voices, you got, one excellent because you attended and the rest were just, good. And in fact, you were very quiet in the class. You really didn't ask a lot of questions. And then hearing your response today about what you learned, you didn't even connect it to what you learned from voices, since that was about the impact on victims. And you had so many victims in this situation. I was just hoping to hear a lot more from you today than what I heard. And I'll be honest with you, that concerns me, because there is the other issue of the anger and all of this. I remember I was in your hearing originally, and you were very angry over what seemed to be something that you shouldn't have been so angry about. So, I need to let you know that you did take the program, but I'm not really hearing from you what you really got from it and how you can really utilize that when when you're out again. So anyway, I didn't really have a lot of questions. That manager, you asked a lot of questions, but that was really my basic concern in this case. That I just didn't hear from him what he really got from the program, even though he took it and finished it. I didn't hear that he really connected it to what happened. Anyway,
Thank you.
thank you so much for hearing me out.
Paul?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, good morning, Mr. Butler.
Morning.
Did any of the curriculum and voices deal with arson-related events?
I can't recall much because it's so long ago.
So most of the curriculum in voices dealt with violence against people, like domestic violence or acts against children, or gun violence or other things like that. Is that right?
Yes.
So then if you think about all of those things in voices that you heard related to other types of events, what do you think that the types of things that would be caused by what you did, even though there wasn't anything about arson during voices? What do you think your impact on the victims that we talked about, what do you think they were?
people got hurt and shouldn't be done. This world is corrupt. People are messed in their heads and they just take it out on other people like I did. It's not okay. It's horrible.
So have you ever lost all your things? Like gone?
Yeah, most of them.
So if you light somebody's house on fire and it burns down, right? What happened?
They lose everything.
They lose everything, right?
Yes.
That's important to understand. I know that the curriculum might not be geared toward that, but it's important for you to see, you know, that when you're dealing with fire, when you're dealing with arson, that it's gonna hurt somebody. You know, it's not only can hurt them physically, and die from smoke or like it's been said, but they can lose all of the things that are dear to them. You know,
I understand.
so I appreciate you you talking to me on that. You know, and it's important that you continue to work on that because, as it's been said, you know, lighting things on fire, that's not normal kind of thinking.
No, it's not.
And unfortunately, it's also thinking that really doesn't get addressed in DOC. You know, so I really, you know, I hope that we can put some things in place so that you get support for what you need to change, right?
That's what I'm going to do with anger management when I get home and whatever else to help me get better.
Okay. That's all I have.
Thank you. Give us a few minutes to discuss your case, sir, and we'll get back to you shortly with our decision.
Alright.
Okay, so, you know, Mr. Butler, it appears to me that there's still some immaturity here.
Mhm.
You know, I mean, he, at 25, he's still growing up.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's almost like he was throwing a tantrum or something. I don't know. But he's got, you know, he's got no other criminal history. And I kind of do think that the supervision of supportive parole would be beneficial for him.
I would agree.
Yeah. He needs help.
Give him a chance to get some sort of service out in the community.
Right. All right. So,
I also believe that to get some mental health support,
right. Yeah.
you
Agreed.
know,
Yeah.
that would be
Yeah.
important.
All right. So we have victims here, and I'll spell out the initials for 1, 2, 3, 5 of them. Mental health eval, interstate, halfway house, and anger management. I know
Yeah,
it seems like a lot.
absolutely.
but-
Did you say out of state?
All right. Okay, in the matter of Jake Butler, inmate number 430326, I'll make a motion to grant parole. It's effective today on or after May 28th, 2024, with the following additional conditions. No contact with victims, initials RB, CB, JA, YM, or FP. You'll parole to interstate to New Hampshire, halfway house placement if it's necessary, a mental health evaluation and treatment if it's deemed necessary, and an anger management program in the community. Did I miss anything? Okay, second. There's a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Do you have questions, Mr. Butler?
No, ma'am.
All right, so listen, you have to just be willing to accept the help, the support, whatever programs they ask you to do, even if you think you don't need it, it could benefit you. We could all grow, right? We don't want to see you come back here. So someone will reach out to you in the near future, okay? We wish you the best.
Good luck.
Thank you. Thank you.
This concludes the hearing for Jake Butler.
Man, okay, so let's unpack this. I'll show you the damage that it had caused because we didn't really get all of it in the video. But you can see here, you know, this is a lot of damage. And then we'll go through how he lit the fire and all the other details of that. But man, all it you even think about the neighbors, forget just that night, but you got to move. And then you find out there's no restitution. Why would the court not order restitution? Sure. What if they didn't have renter's insurance? Or so maybe they did, and they're not going to have him pay restitution to the insurance company. I don't know. But here's our prints, and we'll go through the details. As you can see here, it says, after burning a photograph of his ex-girlfriend, Jacob Butler recalled that his neighbors suspected him of stealing a bucket of softballs, so he turned his small red-handled lighter against the plastic porch. And I'm like, wow, you can light an outside plastic siding with a lighter? That's shocking to me, but we'll go through the details. We'll explain how it all happens, and then we'll unpack it. But first, let me just share some of my thoughts about this hearing, which is, one, my first thought watching this was, wow, incel. And I guess it's not fair just because someone's mannerisms or voice reminds me of that. I mean, he did have a girlfriend. Incels don't have girlfriends. So I guess it's just not a nice thing for me to say, but there was something I don't think I don't, for me, it was just something scary and creepy about this. And I guess when you look at the bottom line fact is that he intentionally burnt down his neighbor's home while they're in there because they accused him of stealing softballs. And Jennifer, I liked the way she handled this hearing. I mean, she had this spunkter, kind of like a Miss Jackson, and just like no BS attitude. And I really enjoyed it. Of course, Mike Paul, the former high school history teacher, came in and is like trying to rationalize with this guy. But man, she's just like, but you didn't even get arrested. Like it's like you remember that you're angry at them, so you're gonna burn their house down. Scary stuff, right? Ugh. Very scary. I'm sure FBI profilers have him down to science about the risks of this guy. But let's go through these details. So, okay. So, and thank you, Richard, as always, for putting together this information. The 20-year-old unemployed butler who lived in one of the fire and water damage apartments was seeking revenge March 29th against the woman he believed had cheated on him. According to an arrest warrant, he burnt her photo in effigy one day after he had burned a screwdriver handle to watch it melt. I mean, this just feels like pulling wings off of flies type of stages of doing stuff, and it was accelerating quickly. It is scary. She is lucky she got away. Butler, who lives with his sister and her boyfriend, said he saw the March 29th fire growing after returning to his bedroom. He tried to douse it with water, but it only seemed to grow bigger. Then he called 911. And I think you got to give him credit for that. He is the one that called 911. Now you might say, well, it was his own house that was getting on fire, but I guess you can come to your own conclusion, or it's not. So anyways, a total of 55 firefighters from multiple departments responded and contained the damage to the end unit of 8 building complex. Most of the 30 initially displaced tenants were able to return to their apartments. He's probably lucky he went to prison, because there's no way he would have been able to continue living there with everyone hating you. Butler's sister Carla told police her brother likes to play with fire. He likes to play with fire. What's the big deal? What 20-year-old doesn't like to burn stuff? I held the flame. This is him saying, this is quoting him. I held the flame of the lighter to the siding for 2 or 3 minutes until it finally caught. And I don't know what kind of lighter this was, but to hold a lighter for 2 or 3 minutes, that's hard to do, right? Your finger would start to burn. It gets really hot. unless he had some special fancy lighter. But this is clear intent. This isn't like he just lit it. I mean, he says 2 to 3 minutes. Maybe it was 10 minutes. Butler told police, "I watched it burn, then panicked because I didn't want to hurt anyone. I was just trying to get my anger out." And again, maybe he panicked because he realized it was on his home too. Or maybe he really didn't want to hurt anyone. Maybe we'll never know. "I was angry at the neighbors because they were always trying to start with me and blame me for stuff like stealing," he said. Police later found the red lighter. All other possible accidental or providential causes were eliminated. Butler remained on $50,000 bond for first-degree arson and criminal mischief. Oof, creepy. I just like the creepy factor is like real big for this one. I really don't have much more to say. I mean, he was gonna get out, it seems, anyways. He was gonna get out anyways for his full term date on Richard has all of this information written down for me. I just sometimes click the wrong tabs. 11/30/2024 is his maximum date. So it was November, which is in 6 months, 5 months from now. So they do this. They were going to parole him anyways, just to give him the extra supervision. And hopefully we don't ever see him again. Oof. Okay, so we saw Iowa, we saw Connecticut, and now we're going to go back to Utah to see a unique hearing. This is a man who found asylum from Iraq and the U.S. and then found himself asylum in a U.S. prison. With that, let's jump in.
أنا جيت من العراق اتجهت لأمريكا على فلايت فور صدام وإجيت لأمريكا بكاس صدامي وأنا كثير يقتلني.
Okay, the letter saying that he came to United States because Saddam Hussein, he was planning to kill him.
قل لي أنا أريد أرجع لأهلي للعراق لأنها أمي ماتت.
And he want to go back to Iraq because his mom passed away. He want to go back to his family.
أنا أورمن وعندي 6 عمليات في هنا.
عندك 6 عمليات وين عفوا؟
أنا ما أريد أموت هنا. أنا ساكن أحكي ويا الله يخليني يطول عمري شوية أرجع بيت للعراق وأموت عند أهلي.
He did about 6 surgeries and he don't want to die in jail. He want to go. He's asking God that give him more life so he can die between his family in Iraq.
أنا ما أريد أموت هنا. أنا أريد أموت ويا أمي بالعراق.
I don't want to die here. I want to be, I want to die in Iraq and buried next to my mom.
أنا عندي 6 عمليات هنا. وعندي بعد 6 عمليات امتنعت من عندهم لأنه 6 عمليات ما نفعني. عندي عملية العيني، عندي عملية الظهري، عندي عمليتين إذاني، عندي عمليتين قلبي. الدكاترة موتوني ما خلوا لي كل حاجة كذي.
So I did 6 surgery, 1 for the eye, 2 for the back, 2 for my ear, and 2 for the heart. I cannot take this anymore. I need to have more treatment, but they will be able to do any more surgeries on me because my health problem. I don't want to die here.
Okay.
قل لي أنا أريد المساعدة، أريد أطلع أروح للسحولة الولفير الولفير يساعدني يعطيني ماني فلوس هاي أنا أرجع بيها لأهلي إنه.
Okay. He's requesting some help from welfare to help to give him money so he can go back to his country, to Iraq.
لأنه أنا جيت الأمريكا فزعت الأمريكا فالأمريكا تساعدني تعطيني السهولة فلسطام وكاش ومركل وحاش أريد المساعدة من عندهم حتى أرجع لأهلي.
So when I came to United States, they give me food stamp, they give me money, they help me. So I need the help. I need some money help so I can go back to my country.
أنا هسه عندي أزمة وعندي حاج وعندي ما عيني هسه قطعها بعد ما أشوف بها. رحت الدكتور يسوي لي عملية ما نجحت عمليتها. إنه إذا أني عندي سهولة تي دي أنا ما أعرف هذا تي دي شنو ما سيل أو سرطان أنا ما أعرف أزول. فعندي عندي عمليات هواية بجسمي.
I do have so many surgeries. I did one in my eye and it wasn't successful. They told me that I do have a TD. I don't know what is the TD is. It could be a cancer. I'm not familiar, but I am pretty sick. I cannot handle it anymore.
Okay, I understand.
هو متفهم هيدا الموضوع.
Are you gonna go to a halfway house until you can get your funds?
هل أنت راح تضلك لحتى يعني ما راح تقدر تروح إلا لما يجيك فلوس لحتى تقدر تروح؟
أنا أريد الحافة حوش بالصاليك قليلة. أريد الحافة حوش بالصاليك لأنه أنا دزوني لا آخر مرة الأولدن أنا ما أعرف بأولدن كل شيء. لأنه أنا جيت من العراق والصاليك. عند الصاليك عند الأمريكان آي دي أمريكان جرين كارد whatever عندها بس أنا أولدن أنا ما عندي كل شيء.
وين شو اسم المنطقة؟
الصاليك.
So you want to, okay, so he wants to move to Salt Lake. I did not catch another name of the city they are sending him to. It's not clear, but he said that when he came to United States, they give him an ID, they have the green card, he have everything. So he's familiar with Salt Lake. So he wants to live in Salt Lake.
Understand. The Department of Corrections will make that decision, but I understand what you're saying.
اوكي هو متفهم هم اللي يعني الجهة المعنية هم اللي بيقرروا بس هو متفهم انت شو اللي عم تحكيه فاهمه.
أنا ما أعرف كل شيء عن زمان.
مش فاهم إشي عن إيش عفوا. He just, I'm the interpreter talking now. He said, I don't understand. And he stopped. And I did ask, what you did not understand?
I read, I take my question back.
Okay.
That's not necessary.
Okay.
I don't have any further questions for Mr. Albertini. Ask him if he has any questions for me, please.
هو ما عنده أي سؤال لإلك. عندك أي سؤال حابب تسأله للقاضي؟
أنا ما عندي سؤال، إلا كل ما عندي أريد أروح لأهلي.
I do not have any question for you, but all what I need just to go back to my family.
Okay. We can't help with that. The only thing I can do is recommend a parole date. And once he returns to Salt Lake City, he can start the process as far as getting money put away to make the move happen.
هلا هو ما بيقدر يوعدك بأي شيء، هو ما بيقدر يساعدك في هذا الموضوع، ولكن لما أنت ترجع تطلع من هنيك وتروح على سولت ليك بتقدر تصير تحوش، تحط فلوس على جنب مشان تقدر تروح.
يا أريد أروح للصالح، مو يدزوني الأردن وأردن كل شيء ما عندنا بأردن. أنا جيت من العراق وجيت للصالح. عندنا الصالح عندنا وين يمكن أجي، عندنا وين أقول على شغل.
Okay. So he's requesting if they will send him back to Salt Lake, not to Ogden, because he does not know anything there, like his ID, his address, everything in Salt Lake. So even if he want to find a job, it's easier for him to find it in Salt Lake.
Okay. Again, I understand what he needs. The adult probation and parole will make the decision where he goes. I don't see why they wouldn't send him to Salt Lake.
هلا هو متفهم اللي انت عم تحكيه، والجهة المعنية اللي هم حاطينك تحت المراقبة في الوقت الحالي بقول لك ما اعتقد انه يعني ما في مانع انهم يبعثوك على سولت ليك، يعني ما في مشكلة ان شاء الله.
شكرا.
Thank you.
If he has nothing else for me, we'll go ahead and conclude.
إذا ما في إشي تحكي له إياه الجلسة رح تنتهي.
Yeah?
No, I don't.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, شكرا لك قاسم.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so that was different. Now, that hearing took place on 5/7/2024. They made their decision on 5/23, and the decision was deny with the rehearing in May of 2029. He's in his early 70s. If you're wondering what it is that he's doing here and how he got here, it actually all began in the invasion of Iraq, and he was had done certain things that where he was at risk of being killed, and so he was brought to America. And we'll unpack what it is that he did before we go into the final hearing of the day, which will be Illinois. And let me first unpack this, and thank you, Richard, of course, for providing all this information. So an Iraqi man who sought political asylum in the United States has been sentenced up to 30 years in prison for attempting to sexually assault several men. And again, that could be the irony in this, is that he's trying to go back to Iraq, and if they do one Google search on him, he's probably going to be in much more trouble when he gets back there. That's just a guess. Now, the sentence was imposed on Qassim Ali al-Rahimi, 46, despite his attorney's argument that a prison term could result in a deportation and execution in Iraq. Al-Rahimi was accused of attacking 3 men in August of 1997, one outside a Salt Lake City bar and 2 others inside his apartment. He cut one victim with a knife. He was charged in 3rd District Court with aggravated kidnapping, aggravated sexual assault, first-degree felonies, and attempted forcible sodomy and forcible sexual abuse and second-degree felonies. In a plea bargain agreement, he pleaded guilty to 3 second-degree felony counts in connection with 2 of the cases. Each count is punishable by up to 15 years. Al-Rahimi admitted guilt when he entered the plea in December, but changed his story during a pre-sentence interview, which is never a good thing to do, right? There are women available all the time if you pay, Al-Rahimi reportedly told an interviewer. Why would I choose a man? Okay. Obviously that just earned him a 30-year sentence. So the defense attorney Michael Patterson argued for probation. Yes, come on, just give him probation. You know what's saying the defendant needed treatment for alcohol, anger management, and sex offender counseling. Peterson also expressed concern that a prison term would result in Rahimi's deportation to Iraq, where he probably would be executed. And again, what do you think? So he was Al-Rahimi was imprisoned for 7 years in Iraq. That's what it was, for protesting a bombing before escaping making his way to America. Could you imagine? And it's just quite this article is written in 1998. So actually this was way before the Iraq invasion, at least the second one. But yeah, there was just something, of course, very distasteful about the hearing, demanding all these things from his host country. And what can you say? I mean, anyways. So with the Utah hearings, I'll tell you, and this is I think the most interesting thing before we jump to the Illinois hearing, and I'll preface it with this. I believe after watching these different states of these different parole hearings that we can coin a kind of new phrase here, which is, if you want to truly understand the culture of a state, watch the parole hearings, because I do think it tells the story. And I say that it's quite confusing. Utah, on the face of it, you look at the sentences that they hand out, you look at the maximum of sentences that legislation allows, it's all a facade when you start seeing these parole hearings. Richard and I we have covered maybe 100 parole hearings that we're only going to roll out slowly because we're waiting for the final decisions, which can take a few weeks or sometimes a month. It almost seems random. But we see life sentences being handed out to those who hurt children. That's what they get, life. And when you see that, you're like, wow, Utah's giving life. But no, they're all coming up for parole after a year, and they're getting granted. So that's what I mean by that. And then on the Connecticut, I think, is what you'd expect from a parole hearing. Louisiana, I now respect so much more. I know I give so much, Louisiana on all the complaining I would do, but they actually seem to me to be the state that takes it the most seriously. Like, they're actually trying. The others just kind of coast through it. I mean, Iowa, we just saw one sample, but a lot of the others that we saw very kind of just felt like predetermined hearings. And I thought that the Iowa one, maybe they took a little more seriously because it felt personal to them. But now we're going to go to Illinois. And if you haven't seen an Illinois hearing, you might be surprised by how this one how they handle it and how it works out. With that, let's jump in.
Mr. DeAndre Banks, age 39, was interviewed by me on April 30th via WebEx, along with the presence of his counsel, Mr. Gregory Swigert and Annalise Brelis. Also present was Ms. Kasia Majarzik, a licensed clinical social worker. All of those, which are a part of the Center on Wrongful Convictions, Bloom Legal Clinic, Northwestern Pritzker School of Law. Throughout the interview, Mr. Banks was attentive, articulate, polite, respectful, responsive. He presented as being invested in the process and was willing to answer questions. Statement of facts. This statement of facts was derived from a very brief statement of facts included in the petition from the Cook County State's Attorney's Office, as well as trial and sentencing transcripts in an appellate court record. On March 11, 2002, at 1125 North Mayfield Avenue, which is in Chicago's Austin neighborhood, Ronnie Washington, age 27 at the time, was in his front yard of his family's home, helping sort through property for the family's impending move that day. The petitioner, Mr. DeAndre Banks, who was 16 years old at the time, was a member of the Black Peastone Street Gang. He was reported to be wearing a black hooded sweater as he walked up next to Washington and fired a gun at Washington before fleeing. Washington would be struck by 6 bullets. Evidence at trial would be presented which indicated after Washington was struck by the bullets, he fell to the ground and was shot again and subsequently died from his injuries. Washington's mother and sister were in the yard with Washington, witnessing the shooting. His fiancée was inside the house and witnessed the shooting from the window. Later, in June of that year, Washington's fiancée was at the West Suburban Hospital waiting room when she recognized the petitioner. When the petitioner looked at her, he left the hospital. It was from this encounter police obtained a name and conducted a photo array for eyewitnesses of the murder. All 3 witnesses identified Banks in a photo array and in a lineup. They also identified him in open court. Banks was arrested on June 5, 2002. At the conclusion of his bench trial, the court found Banks guilty of first-degree murder. Though he faced a sentence of 20 to 60 years for the murder and an additional 25 years to life for the firearms enhancement, the sentence imposed would be the minimum available: 20 years for the murder, 25 years for the firearms enhancement, a total of 45 years imposed on December 28, 2004. Banks' conviction and sentence was affirmed on direct appeal. A post-conviction petition was also denied and affirmed on appeal. Following the Miller decision, he would be granted a new sentencing hearing. Banks would be resentenced to 23 years on January 10, 2023. A motion to reduce the sentence to 20 years was filed on February 8th of 2023 and was subsequently withdrawn by the petitioner. Banks' current MSR date is February 14th, 2025, so the relief he seeks today is 8 months, 15 days. Criminal history record information. Mr. Banks' juvenile criminal history will be discussed in closed session. Institutional adjustment. Mr. Banks' institutional adjustment has been nothing short of remarkable, and the following summary was derived from his petition and his parole eligibility interview. Banks has only received 3 tickets during his incarceration over the last almost 22 years. Those occurred in 2005, 2009, and 2017. All were considered to be minor during the judicial review of his resentencing hearing. During his time at Menard, he renounced his gang affiliation, and there's a document in the petition which was presented during his parole eligibility interview as evidence of the renunciation. This IDLC document, dated March 23rd, 2015, indicates he denied street gang contacts at that time when questioned by IDLC staff. The official IDLC renunciation process has not been completed, though that is not uncommon. Mr. Banks obtained his GED and completed 280 days of programming during his period of incarceration, even though by law he is not eligible for earned program sentence credit based upon his sentence. While the petition includes only a few programming certificates, it's significant to note that programming is limited for incarcerated persons like Banks until they get close to their release date. Programming opportunities have certainly increased since his recent transfer to Kewanee, and it is clear he is taking full advantage of them. After years of incarceration, Banks began to hold a variety of jobs beginning in 2010. Those include work as a janitor, cook, groundskeeper, and barber, both at Menard and now at Kewanee. He is also working as a kitchen server at Kewanee. Banks also helped spearhead a fundraising effort while at Menard, where around $2,500 was raised and donated to By the Hand, an organization that provides educational mentorship and extracurricular opportunities to children in under-resourced neighborhoods in Chicago, including the Austin neighborhood where he came from. Banks is an avid writer, and his 2020 article titled COVID in Menard, was published by Northwestern Pritzker School of Law. A more recent article titled From the Pit to the Penthouse describes his time at Menard and his more recent experience at Kewanee. He holds the distinction of being the only barber at Kewanee, so he has made fast friends and is no doubt very busy with his barbering duties. Mr. Banks has been able to maintain a good relationship with his family and extended family through phone calls and email. Given the distance of Menard Correctional Center from Chicago, he had a very limited number of visits by his family. A review of his visitor's log confirmed his mother only visited him once, and that was in 2006. Two of his cousins visited him once in 2023, and most recently, three of his cousins visited in 2024 following his transfer to Kewanee. The bulk of his visits over the years were from his legal team at Northwestern, who has represented him since 2015. Despite this, the judge in his resentencing hearing found it remarkable and commented on the fact that over a dozen family members were present in court to support him after over 20 years of incarceration. Family support for Banks is also documented through a great number of letters of support from his family. I conducted a behalf interview with his cousins, Chikari and Janetta, and their testimony regarding the love and support Banks has been able to provide to his entire family was very evident. It was obvious not only their love for him, but their admiration and appreciation for the emotional and motivating support he has provided to them and the 16 children who currently call him their godparent. I commend him and his family for their dedication, love, and support of each other. A very significant letter of support was provided by the barber supervisor at Menard, who had never penned a letter of support for an incarcerated person, but did so for Mr. Banks, speaking very highly of his character, barbering skills, and belief that he will have a successful reentry. That is a short summary of the institutional adjustment accomplishments of Mr. DeAndre Banks, though many more are contained and detailed in his petition. Statements as to the offense. Mr. Banks has asserted an actual claim of innocence since the day of his arrest. He claims not to have known Mr. Washington. The petition asserts a gang other than the Black Pea Stones may have been involved in the murder of Ronnie Washington, and his attorney, Mr. Swigert, testified they continue to investigate the matter to this day. A successive post-conviction petition would be filed if proof of Mr. Banks' innocence is secured. Mr. Banks indicated he has remorse for the Washington family and addressed this in his parole eligibility interview and in the presence of Mr. Washington's mother during his original trial and the resentencing hearing. Parole plan. The parole plan presented in this petition is very well documented and will provide Mr. Banks the best opportunity he could have for successful reentry. Banks' original parole plan was to live with his mother, but due to housing complications, an amended parole plan was submitted and is included in this petition. Banks would like to reside at Precious Blood Ministry in their hospitality house, where he has been admitted and will receive 3 months of housing rent-free. This is a transitional living facility specifically designed for individuals who have been incarcerated for over 20 years. It provides wraparound services, and he will be assigned a reentry case manager. There are workforce development resources and access to health clinics nearby. Bloom Legal Clinic will continue to collaborate with Banks and has pledged mental health services through their partnership with Adler University Community Health Services and NAMI. Banks' plan includes options of pursuing a CDL, since his cousin owns a freight and transportation delivery service and is willing to employ him. He would also like to raise or find grant funds to attend barber school. Neither Menard nor Kewanee's barber programs are accredited, like the program at Stateville Correctional Center, meaning his now over 11,000 hours of accumulated barbering time is not able to be utilized to fulfill the 1,500-hour state licensing requirement. It is my hope this is something IDOC can rectify moving forward. His parole plan includes redundant reentry planning, as he has also been accepted to St. Leonard's Ministry, a phenomenal facility myself and many of my colleagues have previously been able to tour. Finally, he has also been has alternative housing arrangements available with his cousin, Jakari. Mr. Banks' parole plan is very well documented and structured and includes layered levels of support for the best possible opportunity for a successful reentry. Opposition to parole release. The Cook County State's Attorney's Office objected during Mr. Banks' resentencing hearing on January 10th, 2023, arguing the original 45-year sentence should remain. In a letter dated April 29th, 2024, the Cook County State's Attorney's Office indicates they have no objection to the petitioner's bid for parole. I do feel compelled for the record to remark on a very impactful victim impact statement penned by Ronnie Washington's mother. It details her horror in witnessing his murder at the hands of Mr. Banks and the subsequent dire effect it has had on her, his children, and their entire family. This is a part of the record in both the original sentencing hearing and the resentencing hearing transcripts for which Mr. Washington's mother was present. No other formal opposition has been received regarding the petition being considered as a part of this hearing. En banc history. This is Mr. Banks' first appearance at en banc, and there have been no prior petitions for executive clemency filed in this matter. Mr. Chair, that concludes my presentation. I do have a motion for closed session at the appropriate time to discuss Mr. Banks' juvenile criminal history record information.
Okay. Does any of the board members have any questions for Mr. Grubb at this time? Ms. Sothner?
Just so I understand, did you say that he was not, that he had earned credit, but he wasn't eligible to receive it? And if so, how much credit are we talking?
280 days at the time of the petition was filed. Mr. Swigert, is there additional time that's been earned since then?
There could be, but I don't know the answer.
And so based upon his sentence for murder, it was 100% sentence, and that's why he's not eligible for the earned program service credits.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from any other board members? Okay. Do you prefer to go into executive session now, or do you want to wait till the?
I'll yield to the chair.
Let's go into executive session at this point, and then we'll be more able to give questions to the attorney.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to enter into closed session to discuss juvenile criminal history record information of Mr. DeAndre Banks.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, motion's been made and seconded to go into executive session. Vote for voting aye.
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 All right. We're going to go into session. You're going to ask you to leave, and then when we're done, we'll bring you back and you'll be able to make your presentation. Okay, we're returned back to normal session. Seeing no other questions, Ally, do you want to swear in the witnesses?
Yes, Mr. Swigert and Mr. Banks. Mr. Banks, just raise your right hand for me. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony that you will give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, you put your hand down. Is there any other witnesses that you're having to testify today?
No.
Okay, we can proceed. Do you wish to call your client as a witness, or how do you wish to proceed?
I would only just make two minor corrections as to the kind of procedural history. When Mr. Grubbs, or Board Member Grubbs, when you asked me about the appeal, I thought you were talking about appeal from the sentence, which we did initiate, and then we withdrew it. The motion to reduce was filed and it was denied, as they usually are. So that was just a minor correction. The other one was, you said that the victim's mother came to the resentencing. That's actually not correct. Her statement was read at the resentencing.
Well, I saw that in the record, but during the parole eligibility interview, Mr. Banks testified that he had apologized to her at that parole eligibility interview, or I'm sorry, at the resentencing hearing.
He did, but she wasn't present to hear it.
Okay, fair enough.
I mean, those were the only minor corrections. I think that was a great summary of Mr. Banks' history. I don't know, DeAndre, do you want to make a statement to the board?
About anything in particular?
Okay.
Saying about anything in particular?
No, it's just, do you have anything that you would like them to know? Sorry. That maybe that Mr. Grubbs did not provide.
As far as the victim's mother, Mrs. Washington, that was when I apologized to her. That was at my trial, and I apologized for her loss and her family's loss. That was at my first trial. Then I read what is that? A letter to the witness, a letter to the victim's mother. That was for my resentencing hearing.
Okay. I see you brought in about, 30 supporters. So anybody who is in support of his petition, why don't you stand up and we can see you? Is that for your supporters?
It is for my supporter, but my other client.
Okay, your other client.
Yes, as the family is watching, but as it was difficult for them to make it to Menard, it's also difficult to make them here, it here as well.
Okay. Any questions from the board for counsel or Mr. Banks?
I have a question or two. Did I understand correctly that there's some ongoing work to challenge the actual conviction?
Yes, we have investigators who continually investigate this case. But we also knew that Mr. Banks had a Miller claim, and that's why we brought it and got him resentenced, and that's why we're here today.
Has the investigation in support of that wrongful conviction led to you identifying who actually did commit the offense?
There are a number of suspects where other people have, implicated them, trying to get either them or someone else to corroborate that is very difficult, especially in a shooting case.
At the time of the original bench trial, was there any defense presented and suggestion in the defense as to who had committed the offense?
Even though some of that information was known to the defense attorney, he did not present it.
Thank you very much.
And I'll also add, Mr. Banks filed a post-conviction petition. It was pro se at the time, and it was denied at the first stage.
Thank you.
Any other questions from any other board members? Okay, I have a couple. He is his projected parole eligibility is what, February 14th of 25, so less than a year from now, is that correct?
That's correct.
And his resentence was, according to this, was
January 10th, 2023.
January 10th of 23.
That's correct.
So less than a year ago.
Correct.
So all the evidence.
Oh, wait, no, more than a year.
A year and a half.
Yeah.
All right. But all the evidence that you presented in your petition was also presented to the judge in the resentencing.
Well, not all of it. He had since moved to Kewanee and accomplished a number of things there as well. And we also updated his reentry plan. It's more stable now and involves a lot more services.
Okay. But the judge heard all the kind of rehabilitation that Mr. Banks has undergone since he's been incarcerated.
Everything except for what's happened at Kewanee since, yeah.
Part of the problem is going to be, at least at the board level, is going to be he was found guilty in a bench trial beyond a reasonable doubt by a judge. And at the same time, he's alleging in the petition he's not acknowledging that he committed a crime. He's saying that somebody else did the crime, even though he has been found guilty. And he apologized to the victim's mother at the same time, while at the same time not being the one who actually killed her son. So there seems to be some discourse between the conflicting issues and positions. So how would you explain all
Well,
that?
I'm glad you brought that up, and I think that's an important issue to bring up in this case. So, to take a step back, I think we all know that there are innocent people in prison, and hundreds of them have come out of Illinois. And a lot of those people do come through and ask for parole. And I can think of one person who did it recently. His name's Jimmy Soto, who was about to come up for his en banc hearing. But that's not what I think this is for. This isn't a place to relitigate innocence or anything like that. It's to determine whether or not, is he going to be a danger if he is let out? Will it be substantially adverse on the effect of the institutional discipline? I think the questions are, has he reformed? Has he been rehabilitated? And will he succeed going forward? And I think that both of those answers are yes, right? Now you can imagine a time where an innocent man, clearly innocent, comes here, asks for parole, and is not deserving of it. And he may have, on the day that he comes in here, videotape, DNA evidence, everything that shows that somebody else did it. But while they were in prison, they were mad at the world because they were wrongfully convicted and did the wrong thing. And they're asking for you to take their consideration and parole them for their behavior. He's not coming in asking for you to decide the innocence portion of this. It's whether or not their behavior shows that they're being rehabilitated and whether or not they will succeed on the outside. And so I think the innocence issue shouldn't be relitigated here, shouldn't be considered here. And I also think that in terms of remorse, actions speak louder than words, right? We all heard that. And we can think of an instance where somebody says, I'm sorry, I did it. But their actions don't show that they understand the seriousness of the crime that they were convicted of. In this case, he understands the seriousness of the crime. He has not deprecated the seriousness of the crime. He has worked his butt off without thinking that working his butt off would help him in any way going forward. He didn't know Miller was going to come around. He thought, I'm just going to better myself. This was a chance. He turned himself around. Prison actually saved his life. And he'll say that. He said that. All of his friends who did not get convicted are either dead or in prison. And this saved his life. He changed almost immediately upon coming there. So I think in terms of the innocence portion, I ask that we not relitigate it, we not consider it, and we look at the actions and see whether or not he has understood that what he's been convicted of, has led to the transformation that you see that Mr. Grubbs spoke about. So that's, I think, my response to the issue of innocence or remorse.
Thank you. We don't relitigate guilt or innocence, but the board has granted pardons based on innocence based upon DNA. But those have been several years ago we did that.
And that's in the pardon situation. This is the parole situation.
Correct.
And I think
Correct.
that's where.
Correct. You are correct. Okay. Hearing any further questions?
Sir, just so I'm clear, with all due respect, in my mind, accountability is a big part of the grace and the grace that this board grants. And I understand that he's apologized. I just want to understand to what extent, if any, there's accountability. Did he know of the crime that was going to occur? Did he know of the other people who were involved in committing the crime? Like, what is he apologizing for? And where it, and what remorse is he? You're saying he has remorse. Remorse for what?
I'm glad you asked that. Thank you, because that was something I left out. He understands that the life that he was leading to either his death or prison for the rest of his life. He understands that would he needed to change from that he is regretful for the decisions that he made. In terms of the case itself, again, I can get into the facts, but that I don't think that you don't have all the evidence. You don't have, the things that that others have had to look at to determine whether or not he's innocent, because that's not, in my looking at this, that's not what this is about. But in terms of accountability, no, that he's not saying that that's part of it. There was, I'll get shortly into it. There was Mr. Washington apparently had an issue with a gang called the Body Snatchers. The Body Snatchers firebombed his house. There is taped recordings of people saying that Body Snatchers saying we need to get Ronnie Washington days or weeks before he was murdered. And DeAndre at the time, who was in a gang, was not in the Body Snatchers. He was in a completely different gang that was not having issues with Mr. Washington, who was a Four Corner hustler, and Mr. Banks at the time was a Black Pea Stone.
Something.
Yeah, go ahead.
Mr. Banks appeared to want to say something at one point there.
Yeah.
Your client wanted to say something.
I raise my right hand and swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. The interesting part about me apologizing to the victim's mother, I didn't apologize because I killed her son. I apologized for her loss. That was in front of the judge, her, and my family. I told her I was sorry for her loss, and I told her verbatimly, well, quote or unquote, I was telling her that it'd be too late for me to try to convince her that I didn't kill her son, because I was at trial that day. I waited 2.5 years for that day. And the statement that I wrote for my resentencing hearing, that was showing empathy for her loss still to this day, and keep bringing it back up. They will relive that type of stuff, even if they heard that at some point. And it's a lot of people, I know a lot of people that talk, I was just at for years on top of years. This is more than 2 decades of just listening to conversation and being in conversation, and me to proclaim my innocence all this time. It's 1,000, probably over 1,000 people that's waiting to call me stupid for saying this. Here it is, after 22 years, I spent more than half of my life in a maximum security institution, and I'm eligible for parole. They would call me stupid for saying, I'm still proclaiming my innocence. So would you go in there knowing you up for parole and be like, well, I didn't kill him, I ain't showing no remorse? No, that's not what I said, man. I say, man, I was showing empathy for this victim's mother and his family, and I'm still proclaiming my innocence. They're like, why would you do that? Why you don't just go for what you know? I say, man, this is my life. I can't allow you to create a narrative.
And DeAndre, can I jump in?
Yes, sir.
I have an ethical duty as a lawyer to not present lies, right? I have an ethical duty. I can't ask DeAndre to go up there and lie. That's something I cannot do, and I won't do it. So I know that I worried that innocence would be an issue. And again, I don't think we should relitigate it. I think we should consider that his actions have shown that none of the issues will come about that why you should deny parole.
Thank you. I appreciate your comments from both of you.
Julie?
Yeah, thank you. So I know that you're indicating that you had not committed this offense, but that you had been kind of active in the lifestyle in a way that might have been leading down a path that would have had a negative outcome. Can you just kind of characterize a little bit your street involvement at that time, or what that period of your life looked like up to the arrest?
Well, I can't say it was a blur, but what I do know, they say you are what you talk, right? I knew school was important. I knew basketball was important, but it was being in the game was at that time was like an organization. It's just when we talk about role models, leadership or whatever, it was like I was what was around me. It's the same as like if someone, or I had people I know, they went to military because their father and grandfathers in the military. My cousins and daddy was real life gang members. So it was like, that's what it was. So I wasn't heavy into it like I was some type of top. I would never say that. It was just, I used to hustle because I like clothes. I used to hustle because I like going to parties for the girls. That was just as far as it went. I went and did like selling drugs. I got caught for selling drugs a couple times, a couple of fights and stuff like that. It was just regular. For me, it was just being a kid that, I knew right from wrong. Being in the basketball tournaments and games and on teams, they gave me our tournament to play basketball, but the streets will have a heavy impact on you. A lot of times we didn't even know the consequences of certain things that we was doing. It wasn't to the extent of like, killing somebody, even though we know people that was killed in our neighborhood, and I can't even say it was all dire. It was just, I think it's just like something not to be proud about, but when you live in this lifestyle, like we used to say, like, yeah, I'm proud of being this in a gang or selling drugs or doing wrong. It was just certain things. Like a lot of times we did things and we got away with it. Like hustling was so easy because it's so tangible. We can get to sell drugs just up the street just to get money to for clothes or food or shoot dice just to go to school, get on a bus or bus car or something. But that was just my neighborhood.
Thank you. And I know there had been mentioned that you'd been in the Black P-Stones and there was this conflict between the victim and the body snatchers in the neighborhood. What were kind of some of the gang dynamics at the time, or what, like, I hadn't heard of the body snatchers. Kind of, were they affiliated with any other group, or kind of, do you know just roughly what was happening in that area at that time?
Well, where the victim's neighborhood is at is not in my neighborhood, and that's the most interesting part about this whole thing, because I can't give you details about what they do in their neighborhood, because their neighborhood isn't in ours, even though we surrounded by people that's not in the same organization that we was in. And that was interesting. So I can't speak on like what they was doing in their neighborhood. We just know like body snatchers ain't in this neighborhood, but we know who they are. It's different fractions of the white stores or whatever, but it's not in our neighborhood. And that's interesting.
So I know it was kind of roughly in the same area, but you're saying kind of a different, like streetwise, it was kind of a different geography, right? Like not kind of in
Yes,
your
ma'am.
local dynamics.
Yes, all in the Austin neighborhood. It's just I'm looking, if this makes sense, I'm looking at a screen to have Mr. Dean, Miss Allie, and Banks. I'm looking at the boxes, but all this can be in the Austin area. But this whole box right here is the blocks that we live on.
Yeah.
In my neighborhood. That's over there, and this is right here. So I can't tell you what's going on over there.
Okay, no, I completely understand that. I appreciate you explaining that a bit. One of the things that we do need to consider is deprecation of the offense. As you stated, we're not relitigating. I think in terms of the considering whether something would deprecate, we need to kind of interrogate a little bit or examine whether there's some basis for the innocence claim, right? I mean, clearly if somebody had done something heinous and were completely caught red-handed and they were up here saying, oh, I never did that thing, that deprecates to a certain extent. I understand this situation may be more complex. But in making the determination to release, there is the potential for causing additional distress to the victim of the case for which the victim's family of the case for which you were convicted. What would these additional, and I know your release date is coming up soon regardless. It sounds like you've done a lot to prepare for that day. What would these extra few months mean for you in terms of being released now versus early this coming year?
I had this conversation before a few times, actually. The interesting part, me being at Kiwani, is getting reacclimated back into the real world, right? Coming from when I just did 18 years, 10 months in Menard, that was a maximum security institution. And it wasn't no game, it was no playground, none whatsoever. And I didn't just seem like just being relaxed. You know how sometimes you be like, hey, man, be strong, be strong, be strong, be strong. People tell you that in cards and letters and emails, on visits, on phone calls. When I came here, I cried a few days in a row, like back to back in sadness, just seeing hot meals perfectly on a plate, just seeing the sky, clouds, beautiful clouds everywhere, right? It was like letting my guard down. I didn't want to be tough all the time. And the like just being here, it was just so helpful. Like people just treated Herman, man, you know? And a lot of times I found myself not even want to talk about Menard. Menard wasn't that shit. It's like way different. It's a whole nother world, man. With like people working on their demons. And you see it, and it's way, way different, man. Then I just get my visit from my family. I was scared because Kaya wasn't born. I got locked up, and she hugged me like she was my daughter or something, man. Just seeing my family on visits. I had more visits from my legal team since 2015 to present time. Then I had my whole bit in Menard, you know. But just coming here, it was like, I felt relieved. I felt like re-energized. I felt alive more so than anything. Not saying like life doesn't happen. It was just, it's a different vibe. I kid you not. And I did everything I said I wanted to do in the application. Like my attorney said, I did none of this for the parole board, for resentencing. It wasn't on the table when I first got locked up in 2005. None of it. When I first came to prison, this is prison life. Welcome to the big house. And how you finna get out of this? We don't know, you don't know. Look, you can either do this or do everything on your own. And I did everything on my own, literally, because I didn't want to be in nobody's trouble. But the next few months, even from here, I did all my mandatory classes here. I prepared, over-prepared my reentry plan, thanks to my reentry team. And it could just be one of those things like, you know, just taking a breather and waiting on your steps, but just being, we was pushing for a time considered serve when I went back for my resentencing. And it's a big difference, I found out per se, being wanting to go home and being ready to go home. Fresh out of Menard, out of all those times, I wasn't ready to go home because it was a different environment. You don't go from being in Iraq to home after you just so in the trenches. Like, yeah, that's a real thing for sure. But just the glow. People look at me like, man, it's on you, man. And a lot of times it's hard to convey that. It takes other people to tell you what they see for you to help you see what's going on.
I respect that. I make no secret of the fact that I had the opportunity to visit Menard, and I give credit for anybody that doesn't lose their mind there. I'll be super frank. And I think it's remarkable, the presence and peace of mind that you've shown and stability of character over your period of incarceration. Again, we're kind of weighing your likely success upon release is one of the factors that we're left to consider. What would you kind of speak to in terms of the consideration of whether a few extra months at Kiwani would actually help strengthen your preparedness for release versus be detrimental, if that makes sense? Have you kind of reflected on that aspect?
Like, what would the next few months be like if I don't get parole?
Whether there might actually be some benefit to being in the environment at Kiwani for additional time to kind of continue to prepare your plan versus immediate release. I don't know if you have thoughts.
Could I speak to that for a second? You know, there's a couple things, some practical, some kind of personal. You know, him being at Menard for so long, you heard how many visits he got from his family. You also heard how close he is with his family. So the personal, the heartstrings is this will allow him to be close to his family that he's magically, somehow miraculously made, you know, strong and big and everything. So it's finally close, finally being able to touch, being able to feel, being able to be with, be able to cry with. The practical things are he has the ability right now to go into two incredible places, Precious Blood Hospitality House and St. Leonard's. I don't know if those things they will have the same opportunities down the road, 8 months from now. They may be full of people, or they may shut down. I don't know. But now he has the time to do that. The final thing I just add practically that it would allow him to do is, I've never met a more proud barber. He wanted to win a contest. He didn't win, and it killed him. But anyway, he can't get those hours yet, even though he has done it 10 times or almost 10 times as what they need to get that license. He can start that process, not in Kewanee, but he can start it when he goes to Precious Blood. If we can get him into Larry's Barber School, I believe is the one that we found to be the best for him.
Did you?
You have something else? Go ahead.
No, I was just going to make a comment. So I did see, for the record, in the petition, the mention about there are literally being goats in the yards now in Austin. I think it's only one home. There's still a lot of hustling and a lot of shooting going on. I do just want to comment again, commend you on, I think, the presence and peace of mind and stability of character you've shown over the years. I think you carry an intense energy about you, and whatever direction you go, you will carry crowds with you. I genuinely believe that. The world needs a lot of individuals willing to stand strong in their character. And I just wanted to offer that. Please, Ms.
Mr. Arnos?
I just want to share a statement. You know, I think that Mr. Grubbs did an exceptional job in demonstrating your consistency and maintaining your heart as innocent, right? And so even though the MSR date is around the corner, I think what's important here for us is to understand that freedom is what we're looking at, that there is this possibility of getting out sooner than later based on the demonstration and meeting the pillars that we're responsible looking at. And also to give value to the community, stepping up as Kewanee has done to provide a transition piece for him. But at the same time, community can do the same thing. Precious Blood is a tremendous community, surrounded by a tremendous community to provide an abundance of services. And at this time, you know, based on Mr. Grove's presentation, and I want to say this to you, Mr. Banks, you have shown that you're able to transition back into community with the appropriate support systems. And for that, I have to acknowledge you and our community for standing up to believe in you and to work towards that end. So thank you.
Thank you.
Just have one quick clarifying question. How long have you been at Kewanee?
Since November.
Okay, thank you.
He was supposed to he was supposed to go earlier, and unfortunately he had a medical issue and a medical hold was put on him. I think, were you originally supposed to go in June or
July?
July. Okay. And the medical issue was sports related, nothing.
Tripped me out.
Any other questions from any other board members?
I just have a couple of wrap-ups.
Okay, proceed.
So, based upon your point of clarification regarding our conversation relative to the resentencing hearing of January 10th and the subsequent motion to reduce that sentence once it was rendered down to 23 years to 20, it was filed on February 8th of 2023. And that motion was subsequently denied, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. The other thing that I wanted to touch on, and I would be remiss if I didn't, was to speak about the conflicts that are in the answers relative to his pre-sentencing investigation, wherein he is questioned regarding where he lives, whether or not he's ever been employed, which is also contained on his resume, and the financial support that he's receiving at that time. That conflicts with the petition in that he indicates that he was living with his mother on West 110th Place. It indicates that his stepfather, whom his mother had remarried, was the one providing him all of his financial support. And his resume indicates that he was employed at two different periods of time prior to his incarceration. Yet in his PSI, he also indicates that he's never been employed. I realize that's a snapshot in time, a time when he was 16, but it does speak to truthfulness regarding the statements that were provided.
I just, a couple things. Yes, it was. And this is when he was 17, I think, by that point. And in terms of the employment, I mean, when we make resumes, and actually, oddly enough, the person who helped DeAndre with his resume is here today, and she, unbeknownst to her, DeAndre's on the thing. Anyway, you know, I worked for my mom, and I don't put that on my resume, right? I don't say, hey, I weeded in the garden and I got $20. But when you're trying to, you know, show that you have a work ethic and you don't have a history, you know, I think you say that does count, right? You try to find ways to say that I did work in some way. So that's what I'd say with that. But again, he was 17 at the time. I don't know if those are, again, and I think, well, and maybe DeAndre, you'd like to talk to it. I mean, you probably did get money from your father-in-law.
Absolutely.
Or
That's
stepfather, sorry.
Yeah, that's who I was staying with. My first job was an independent contractor with my Uncle John. He was a carpenter. He used to build garages, lay concrete, bushes, paint, all that. But my major job that I first got a check from was from the Mayor Daily program in Chicago. That was my first job. I was a painter. I was painting murals. Yes, sir, indeed. And that's on my resume. I stand by that.
And I'll just add one other part that's a little bit unrelated, but you know, both the sentencing judge, the resentencing judge, I should say, and the state's attorney's office are aware that Mr. Banks is still claiming his innocence, and yet they're able to, you know, sentence him to something much less than 45 years and not oppose Mr. Banks being released now. I think that should play into your decision as to whether or not to grant Mr. Banks parole.
I'm prepared to make a motion, Mr. Chair.
Okay, you have any further evidence that you want to present at this point?
No.
Okay, hearing no other questions?
And then just
Sorry.
clarifying whether or not anyone is here in opposition.
Okay. Okay, well, if you want to make your motion now, and then we'll have a little further discussion, we'll go ahead.
I was just going to offer for context that it's very common for individuals with housing instability to like use an address, but to be kind of transient, that they may stay with their mom some of the time, but then their aunt. And I've seen that time and time again. And so just in terms of the weight that might carry.
Yes, I understand. And I'll let my colleagues place the weight that they decide to place upon that. I'm just saying that he listed an address other than where he was actually living.
Make your motion.
Mr. DeAndre Banks, age 16 at the time of the offense, and Mr. Ronnie Washington, age 27 at the time of his murder, both lived in what has been described in this petition as a very under-resourced, crime and gang-ridden Austin neighborhood of Chicago. Their homes were a mere 7-minute drive or around a 30-minute walk from each other. Mr. Banks denies knowing Mr. Washington and takes no responsibility for his murder. The senseless murder of Mr. Washington has taken a tragic toll on two distinguished and different families for the last 22 years. It is clear from this petition, as well as testimony provided and the court records reviewed, that Mr. Banks received minimal mentorship and inadequate familiar supervision during his childhood. He followed in his father and uncle's footsteps by joining the Black Pea Stone Street Gang, selling drugs to help support his required rent for his family's Austin neighborhood home. It goes without saying these are things no one should be exposed to, especially our youth. His criminal activity increased when his mother relocated herself and his younger sisters, leaving him behind in the Austin neighborhood as they moved to the suburbs. This contributed to him being arrested 8 times before his arrest for the murder of Ronnie Washington, for which he received a 45-year sentence following his conviction. He was afforded the benefit of a resentencing hearing, and his original sentence was reduced to 23 years. His institutional adjustment parole plan and support through the members of his family and his legal team are nothing short of remarkable, and he, along with them, are to be commended. His recent transfer to Kewanee Life Skills Reentry Center, IDOC's flagship facility, is affording him valuable skills and tools which were largely unavailable to him at Menard Correctional Center. Every additional day he is able to spend at Kewanee will only serve to benefit him and provide him the best outcome he could have for a successful reentry. And it is my assessment that all of the support which has been wrapped around him will remain when he is released. Not just today, not just 8 months from now, but beyond. Though he states he's remorseful for the death of Mr. Washington, questions about the reasons for his remorse remain for me. And I remain troubled by the complete lack of responsibility Mr. Banks accepts for the murder of Mr. Washington. The record is very clear that this matter has received some of the highest levels of legal scrutiny and judicial review our system of justice has to offer. And at each step, Mr. Banks' appeals have been denied, including the resentencing benefit he recently received. This board is now being asked to set aside all of that analysis and judgment of that most recent judicial review and decision. Given the lack of responsibility for his actions, for which he was convicted in causing the death of Ronnie Washington, my motion is to deny parole, as parole release at this time would deprecate the serious nature of the offense, would promote a lack of disrespect for the law, and may even have an adverse effect on institutional adjustment.
Mr. Bolin? Oh. Do we have anybody in protest to the petition? Okay. Any discussion from the board members at this time? Okay. Do we have a second for Mr. Grubb's motion?
I will second it.
Okay. Motion's been made and seconded. Seeing no further discussion, Ally, take the roll.
Mr. Grubbs,
Yes.
Mr. Boland,
Yes.
Mr. Coates,
Yes.
Mr. Delgado,
No.
Ms. Globoker,
No.
Mr. Heaton,
I don't want this to reflect on my view about guilt or innocence, but my vote is no.
Ms. Schaffner,
No.
Ms. Trones,
No.
Mr. Chupi,
No.
No, I think it's 5-3, isn't it?
How many do we have? 6?
Okay.
Okay. You have a quorum, 6. The motion was to deny was denied. So it'd be a grant. With motion to reverse. Second. You have a motion to reverse. Reversing the motion would be to deny, so motion to grant. So it'd be, okay. Okay. Okay.
Point of order, Mr. Chair. I think,
Go ahead.
given that the motion was denied, I think we need a new motion in order to grant. And accordingly, I would make the motion that we grant the petition for parole.
Second.
We've never done it that way. We've always just taken the motion straight up.
If it's automatic, then I will withdraw the motion.
Okay. Okay. Motion to grant was denied, so he's been granted parole.
Motion.
Motion. We
Motion-
apologize, Mr. Banks. It was a
Motion to deny the petition was denied, and so his parole is
Is
granted.
granted.
Wait, what?
Your parole is granted, DeAndre. Congratulations.
Thank you.
What a worthy ending of what I thought was an intense parole hearing. The board member makes a mistake, and I don't blame him. It was kind of confusing how they did it, where he then says that he's denied, for then the correction to come in, and you have DeAndre Banks that actually hear him yell through the screen, "Wait, what happened?" And they say, "You were granted." And now I know then there's kind of like you take a step back and say, wait a minute. I mean, we're talking about like 7 months. And that's when I come to this entire, and this is the point that I'm making about Illinois. I think Illinois, I think Chicago, I think the reputation it has is like just being so leaning on crime. And I thank you for Griggs for showing us where to find this hearing, and Richard, of course, for providing all for actually recording it and doing, so anyways, but I just don't expect this from Illinois. And this comes back to the point where I think if you really want to get a sense of what a state is like, is watch their parole hearings. I mean, the seriousness that they put into this case, when I think that many other states would either say, we're not having the hearing, or it's like a predetermined outcome before the hearing even happens. And in this case, there actually so much thought that goes into it, so much effort, and the different viewpoints, and saying, well, if the judges made their decision, we're not going to overturn it. And the idea that, hey, you were found guilty, you're still guilty. Why would we go and let you out early? I mean, it's just, how do I unpack this? So we do have a bit of the appeal that we can go over. There's not much in there, but we can still go over it. But I think it's more about just talking about this hearing. And there's going to be a lot that I want to say that I wish I would have said after I watched this. And the reason is that I've been putting this stuff together for so long, and we're already at 2 hours and 10 minutes. So I know we're all tired. And my brain's a little bit of mush at the moment. But one thing that I wanted to point out was when he came on and made the statement that why would I come out and say that I'm innocent? There's no benefit for me to say I'm innocent. He starts going on the speech before the attorney cut him off. And normally, and I pointed this out several times in the Louisiana hearings, where we have seen people come up for commutation or parole 40 years later and say they're innocent. In those cases, I would say, yeah, that's exactly the thing to say, because they have a lot to lose. And that's because they're backing life in those cases. And to still claim you're innocent is dumb. In this case, I completely disagree. He's getting out anyways in 7 months or 8 months. And he has a lawsuit pending that he wants to get compensated for being falsely detained. So, or locked up. So he has every reason to come out, every single reason, probably a multi-7-figure digit reason to come up here and say that he's still innocent. So the idea that he actually said that didn't ring well with me. And I think his attorney shut him up kind of for a reason there. And you would think that he would have been better prepared or something, because it's very disingenuous. I mean, we're not idiots, right? And the board's definitely, they're not. And it's not going to go over them to know that. So I just didn't like it. That really rubbed me the wrong way. And then I like how the board came in with other points, like, well, they really they went through the weeds and picked up every little detail. Nothing got over them. Was saying, they brought up at the beginning of when he had his bench trial, did they mention, was there another killer? Any ideas who it was? And then his attorney, who I thought his attorney was really good, in my opinion. His attorney, I don't think had a lot to work with, but he had a well thought out answer for every question that came to him in the most, like attorney kind of way. Like, he had an answer that somehow made his response feel good. When you actually look at it, it's just not. His answer is like, well, his attorney at the time they did have another suspect, but his attorney didn't mention it. And it's like, okay, yeah. I mean, if that's the case, you would have had a whole nother appeal, on your hands. And I'm not aware of that appeal, being that he wasn't properly represented, being out there. So, and it is hard to come out and insist you're innocent, and also they pointed out, well, then he went and gave a speech saying that he's sorry. How can you give that speech? And it's like, if you're falsely locked up and you're twisting it, well, he's empathetic for how it feels, and the job resume, they even picked that up. They're like, it seems that it's embellished. He doesn't have a job, and now you're saying he does. Well, we all, when we have the attorney says, whenever, if we work for someone, we want to make it look good. We want to make it look good. It's not that he's lying. I really enjoyed the jousting and like legal aspect of this entire hearing. Do I think he's guilty or innocent? I have no idea. Am I upset that they released him a few months early? No. Why I say no in this aspect is that if he is innocent, to have him in there for one more day would be such a travesty. And we're still just talking about such a small period of time that it just doesn't seem that consequential. And I don't think he's a risk being out there and that all of that stuff. But let's go to the appeal if you want to. I mean, he was convicted on pretty flimsy evidence, if you want to even call it evidence. It really seemed like just one person saying something. So this is what it was. Following a bench trial, the defendant was found guilty of first-degree murder in March of 2002 homicide of Veronica, Washington. He was subsequently sentenced to 45 years in prison, which included 20 years for first-degree conviction and 25 years as a mandatory add-on term for use of a firearm during a homicide. Isn't that interesting that in Illinois they even have a law that strict, right? Something we would never think. Now, maybe the legislation has changed. I don't know. But I mean, an automatic 25 years of sentence added on just because you use a firearm. Since the defendant has not raised any issue related to the facts of this case, we will only provide a brief summary of the evidence presented at trial. I know that's why they only provide us a little bit of evidence, because he didn't raise. In the afternoon of March 11th, Washington was in front yard of his family's home helping sort bags for his family's move. The defendant, wearing a black hooded sweater, walked up next to Washington and fired a gun 5 or 6 times at Washington and then fled. Washington's mother, sister, and fiance witnessed the shooting. You can see how dramatic that is. Did you do this in front of his loved ones? The shooting from different positions in the house and yard. Later in June 2002, so this is quite some time later. It's March, it was April, May, just 3 months later. And just imagine if they, somehow they're both in the hospital room of, both in the waiting room at hospital the same date, the same time. And she recognized the defendant. And when the defendant looked at her, he left the hospital. And you could just see it. It's like a moment where she's sitting there and she looks, and she's probably in her mind, oh my God, that's him. Like, she'll never forget that face. But imagine if he just went in there and left coincidentally, didn't even remember that interaction. It wasn't him. I don't know. You would think that just this would never be enough to convict someone, right? And it was he opted for a bench trial instead of a jury trial. Okay, from this encounter, the police obtained the name and conducted a photo array for the eyewitnesses. All 3 witnesses identified the defendant in a photo array and later in a lineup. So that is convincing, although you always wonder what it was like in that room when they were doing that. Were they in the room together at the same time? Was it done separately, etc., etc.? They also identified him in open court. At the conclusion of the trial, the court found the defendant guilty of first-degree murder. The defendant conviction and sentence was affirmed on direct appeal. Okay. I mean, I still think it's like it is being convicted on. I wonder if today you get a conviction, and probably a flip of a coin. People like to have DNA evidence. They like to have something more. But you don't have cell phone stuff back then. There's really not much to go on except eyewitness. In August of 2008, defendant filed his pro se conviction, but they had no other witnesses. It's not like he had someone testify against him, which they usually have, a jailhouse snitch type of thing. Anyways, so no confession. That's it. That's really all we have. Man, if he wins his appeal somehow and prove, I don't know how you would do that without finding the person who did it, though. And he wasn't being covered by the Innocence Project, right? No. You would think that says something. But I'll put the link in the description. Anyways, Richard shared some other things of his writing. It does seem that he's a talented writer. I'm not going to go through it again. It's so late. But anyways, what do you guys think of all these hearings? We have a lot more. I have some bad news. We recorded, oh my gosh, Richard recorded 8 hours of Utah hearings, 8 hours. And when I went to download it, to save it, I clicked the delete button by mistake. And Richard didn't only record the 8 hours, he had done the research on every single case, the spreadsheets. He put the amount of time was it, and I said, oh my God, Richard, I deleted the whole thing and it's gone. There's no way to get it back. There's no way, believe me. I tried to write you, but that was a crummy feeling. There's a lot that goes into these recordings, a lot of hiccups, a lot of headaches, a lot of heartbreak, a lot of time. So I thank you all for all the support. It means a lot. And with that, I'll let you go.